Read Mark chapter 6. Yes, Mark chapter 6, verses 1 through 13. Mark 6, 1 through 13. He left that place and came to his hometown. His disciples followed him. On the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astounded. They said, "Where did this man get all this? What is this wisdom that has been given to him? What deeds of power are being done by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, son of Mary and brother of James and Joseph and Judas and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?" And they took offense at him. Jesus said to them, "Prophets are not without honor, except in their hometown, and among their own kin, and in their own house." And he could do no deed of power there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and cured them. And he was amazed at their unbelief. Then he went about among the villages teaching. He called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2, and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. He ordered them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not to put on 2 tunics. He said to them, "Wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave the place. If any place will not welcome you and they refuse to hear you, as you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them." So they went out and proclaimed that all should repent. They cast out many demons and anointed with oil many who were sick and cured them. The word of God for us, the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
Let us pray. God, we thank you for a great day. Now be with us through these next few minutes. Give us the courage and the wisdom that we need, Lord, to withstand, and help us to hear this message. This message about this hometown Lord that was on the move. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. There are several things that I appreciate about being an itinerant minister. Every time we move from appointment to appointment, we have an opportunity to purge some stuff. You know how stuff builds up in your home? My motto is this: if we hadn't used it in 2 years, it's out. She doesn't like that motto, but that's the way it kind of works. But some of my greatest experiences in itinerant ministry is that I get to meet people. You see, I'm a people person. I love, if you get around me, I'm going to talk to you. We're not just going to sit and look at each other and stare at the walls. We're not going to just talk about the weather. We're going to get into some kind of conversation. Remember that second appointment. There was a guy in the church that owned auto parts, or auto repair shop, actually. And I'd go over on Tuesday mornings, and he had some old car seats in the middle of his garage. Back then, in 1995, I guess it was. I guess the insurance would still let you sit in. So we just gather in that old garage and sit in those old worn-out car seats, and we just talk. 97, thank you. Always got somebody, there's always somebody in the back preaching to you. But we had some good conversations, you know, we'd sit. Do any of you remember when they had drink boxes in the gas stations? You've never lived until you leaned up against a drink box and had a great conversation over a cold Pepsi or a cold Coca-Cola. When I managed the grocery store, I enjoyed meeting people. My wife, Charlene, will tell you that I enjoy people. before our wedding, I was a little bit worried that no one would show up, so everybody that came into the grocery store for 3 months prior to the wedding, I invited to the wedding. And they all came. 350 of them came. It made my daddy so nervous he had to have a Valium. He was so drunk before the service was over, he could hardly stand up. It's great being an itinerant preacher. But when people find out about it, they begin to speculate. Especially when you go back to your hometown. Do you know how difficult it is to go back to your hometown and preach to some of those people? You see, back at your hometown, people know you. Boy, do they know you. They remember how you acted in a Sunday school class. They remember when you were in their elementary class and he was your elementary school teacher. Back then, I don't agree with this type of thing now, but back then that elementary school teacher could still use an old wooden paddle. And let me tell you, I got my rear end tore up more than one time. I don't agree with that now. Don't say the preacher stopped bringing back corporal punishment. I don't agree with it, but it didn't hurt me. You know how embarrassing it can be trying to preach to your elementary school teacher who's tanned you high a few times? Today I picture Jesus entering the synagogue, entering the church, walking down the aisle, and the people are kind of squirming in their seats because they're looking for something solid. They're looking for something good. And this hometown boy is coming back to Nazareth, and he's bringing his entourage with him. His disciples are with him. They're gathering together with him. His family and his neighbors are waiting. And I bet you they're preparing to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure they're looking at one another and saying, well, you know, this is his real first time back home. Let's kind of go easy on him. I think he'll be okay. But even if he's not even if he's not a real good preacher, this is kind of his, first time. You see, they're thinking they're waiting on a young man who's building shelves. They're thinking they're waiting on a young man who can drive a straight nail. They think they're waiting on a young man who can build a wall. But oh, are they in for a great surprise. Jesus is on the move, and the people in the hometown are asking me so many great questions. Where does he get all this power? Isn't this just the son of Mary? Isn't this a carpenter? How does he do these great deeds? And the Bible tells us that they took offense at it. They took offense. That word offense written then could mean stumble, like a stumbling block. They thought that Jesus was pretty much going to be a stumbling block for what they had going on. They took offense with it. I bet the sign maker for the town was probably sitting there yawning. He'd been up late the night before and made the sign for the entrance of the city. Welcome to Nazareth, hometown of Jesus. Probably the city council members were sitting there thinking, we can't wait to show him what this great piece of prime property is, where we're going to build his great ministry center. Others probably said, we'll set up a good Twitter account. No, they wouldn't have done that. The gathered people were so excited, and Mark tells us that Jesus began to teach, and those who heard him were astounded. They were astounded. What about that? Even Jesus offended some people. Can you imagine that? There's always been the old saying, not even Jesus could please some people. We were getting ready to leave our first appointment. I think I told y'all this, I think I did that or not. But anyway, back then, the district superintendent would come and he'd meet with the PPR committee. It wasn't staff, it wasn't SPRC, John, we didn't have any staff. It was just me and her. See? So it was pastor-parish relations committee. He came in and he said around the table, just what kind of preacher are you looking for? What kind of pastor would you like to receive here at this church? And they said, well, we think our church would best receive a young male pastor and his wife with a couple young children. And it would probably be best if he were Caucasian and maybe his wife could play the piano and maybe she could lead the youth group. He said, hold it. I guess you wouldn't want Jesus, would you? Make sense? That young preacher from Nazareth is on the move. The first 5 books, the first 5 chapters, excuse me, Mark, tells us of the many things. Already, he's called his disciples. He cleansed a person with leprosy. He healed a paralyzed man. He healed one with a withered hand. He calmed the storm. He restored last week life to a dying girl. He pronounced healing and peace to a woman with a 12-year illness. And still the text says that Jesus was amazed at his hometown crowd because they still did not believe. That's a whole lot of ministry to have done, and some of them still just didn't believe. I believe that what Mark is telling us today is this. That we have to be people who take a leap of faith. We have to be people. I believe Jesus' message was this. We have to be people who take a leap of faith. And people who walk as grace-filled, love-filled, compassionate-filled. Does that make sense? Could that have possibly been his message? There's an old story about a young guy who led trips to the Holy Land. He wanted to be the best he could be leading those trips. So he learned all about the geography, tried to learn the names of all the places he might show those people who gathered to go to the Holy Land. He stood up front on the bus and held his microphone up, and he would say, this is such and such a place, and this is such and such a place, and let me tell you a few facts about this place and a few facts about that place. And then he went by Nazareth. And he said, oh, by the way, you see this hill over here close to Nazareth? That could very well be the hill in Luke chapter 4 that Jesus, they tried to push him off the hill. That could very well be an old priest in the back of the bus who was half asleep raised his hand and said, what was the name of that hill? And this guy who just pulled out of his brain trying to figure out, he was stunned. He said, that I believe is called the Mount of Jumpification. It was funny to me, but I believe, dear friends, that Jesus is calling us to make that leap of faith. I believe that Jesus is telling us that there are mountains that we have to climb together. There are ways that we have to move forward together. And I believe, dear friends, that God has a plan for us. And these youth are showing us, they're leading us, they're directing us. We've got people that are ready to take us to that next level. That's the message today. This hometown hope. Walk by faith. Take that leap. Sign up. Tell this guy,
I'm willing to help. I'm willing to cook on Sunday night. Am I on target here, brother? That's the message. Message of faith, grace, compassion, and love. We're marching. We're marching truth, design together. Let us pray. Father, we are gathered here in your house. Your word has become a powerful word to us. We thank you, God, for the ways that you have blessed this church. That we anticipate with great joy what you have in store for us over the years. Help us to take that leap of faith. Help us to hear that Jesus taught message. We'll be people who walk by faith, people that love, who show compassion, people that help our neighbor. We're marching, Lord. We're marching in Zion. Beautiful.